Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for the week of October 3rd, 2023. A little bit smaller week this week. We don't have like 15 books like last week, just 10. Uh, and overall, it was an okay week. Nothing really blew me away, but there were some good titles, so we're going to talk about it. How about you, Rocky? What'd you think of the week overall?
Yeah, I agree. There was one comic and everyone it's gonna be you're gonna do all the review for because I don't like anthologies, but there was some that I liked, and I'm batting probably about 30% this week. But it was kind of an off week, frankly. But there were some good ones, I thought.
Ghouls, just want to have fun. I was kind of looking forward to seeing if you had a different opinion on some of those stories than I did.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I couldn't read it. I'm just not. I was just so dismayed. More no name writers and artists I wasn't a fan of, and I thought no, it's not getting my money, and it's not gonna. I'm not even gonna give it a read anymore. I mean, I should read it. I apologize to those who are foolish enough to, are nice enough to show up for my opinion, but I never. I had to budget my time, and I don't understand these anthologies. I don't think that they serve DC Comics very well, to be honest with you. These short stories, I just
yeah,
don't think they work.
we yeah, we've touched on it a few times over the last few months, and talked about. I feel a little hypocritical saying God too many anthologies when I was saying they should do more anthologies. Now they are doing them, and I'm still complaining. But we've talked about this before. It's you can't add anthologies without getting rid of some of the other titles. Like the point is get rid of like four titles and have those titles come out in an anthology with the main story, not and I don't have a problem with it. No name writers and what have you. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, and oftentimes the first chance a writer artist gets is in an anthology. So I don't mind that, and I don't mind them coming out once in a while. But yeah, they're a lot, and I'll talk about it when I get there. But um, if you're just putting on an anthology to put out an anthology, and there's no point to it, then as a reader, I feel I'm not feeling the value. There are other reasons to do it, like copyright reasons and what have you, trademark reasons. We'll get to that, but anyway, let's kick it off with Birds of Prey #2. This is from writer Kelly Thompson, art by Leonardo Romero, colors by Jordi Belair, letters by Clayton Cowles. Megadeth Part 2. We were both big fans of the first issue. What'd you think of the second one?
I it was it was surprisingly slower than I thought. I thought because this is still just set up. This is still just set up. I was hoping it would hit the ground running a little bit faster, but this was still just set up for the we. It ended last issue with we know that Dinah Lance, Black Canary, has put together this team of all women, and the reason why they have to be all women is that it involves a mission to essentially infiltrate Paradise Island, the Mascara, where apparently Sin, the adopted, I guess, sister of Dinah Lance, is being held captive, at least held captive according to Dinah Lance. But this issue is just all set up, which I have to say, despite being all set up, I will give Kelly Thompson some credit here because it is. We did get some initial pages showing some backstory between showing the relationship between Dinah Lance and Sin a number of years ago, and then just more conversation between the team members themselves. They're just really starting to build their rapport with each other, and we're literally listening to them discuss how they're going to plan to get onto Paradise Island, and it's a lot of it is conversational, but we don't really get a lot of substance in the conversation. We just know that, well, Harley Quinn was trying to get noticed because she has an idea as to how to infiltrate the island, and then Zealot has an issue, and then has an issue with Black Canary, and I was surprised that Zealot had a conversation with Black Canary because she got the impression that this was a mission that might involve killing Amazons, and Zealot was against that. I was very surprised. Nobody, I would think, in the Justice League or anywhere in the DC universe thinks of Black Canary as anyone. She's never killed anybody, Black Canary. I don't think she doesn't kill people, so I don't know why Zealot would think Black Canary would even think about killing Amazon. So I thought that was a little off. Black Canary is somebody who never kills, so this was never going to be a kill mission. So that was a little bit off to me. Big Barda, I love the characterization of Big Barda. She's quickly turning into probably one of my favorites. And I think she's many people's favorites, quite frankly. And overall, and by the way, that's a minor nitpick on Dinah Lance because overall, Kelly Thompson has nailed these characters. I enjoyed it. The dialogue was great. She was really good at establishing the rapport of the characters. I love that Dinah Lance ends up meeting up with John Constantine because there's some, I don't know, I'm not even clear why she went to see John Constantine. Apparently, she's trying to put together a number of, I don't know, weapons, or she's gathering some various items that she's going to need for her mission, and she needs John Constantine to help her do that. Meanwhile, Big Barda went to acquire some urn, and so I have a feeling all these things that that were acquired throughout the issue will have some will pay dividends in future issues. And the secret weapon at the end that they end up using ends up being King Shark is the method upon which they're going to infiltrate Paradise Island, which is kind of funny. That was Harley Quinn's master plan. We're going to get King Shark to help us and help them infiltrate Themyscira. I got no idea how that's going to work. I don't know how King Shark could help them, but maybe he knows some underground passageways onto Themyscira. Who knows? Be kind of interesting. And I thought overall it's just set up, but it worked. It did entertain me. The dialogue was good. The characterizations were, I would say mostly spot on. Minor nitpick with Black Canary. Zealot. In fact, as a matter of fact, I would have thought Zealot of all people would have no problem with killing Amazons. If I'm blunt, so I thought that was mixed up. I thought Zealot would be more the aggressive type here. I like the fact that Black Canary was actually worried at one point where Big Barda and Cassandra Cain came back, and Black Canary's worried that Cassandra Cain and Big Barda are going to accidentally kill people. I thought I wasn't sure if she was really joking, but like seriously, Cassandra Cain doesn't kill. So, but yet she thinks Big Barda does, and I guess Big Barda is used to killing, so maybe Big Barda is the wild card. Again, I'm nitpicking, but I would think that those types of moments where you're worried about Big Barda accidentally killing somebody or killing somebody for real, it would have more meaning if she actually does kill somebody at some point or did up front. I think that would be more funny. But again, I'm enjoying this. I enjoy the dialogue. I enjoy the rapport. I'm really looking forward to what this mission is. I'm looking forward to learning more about Meridian, who is Maps, a future version of Maps Mazaguchi. I'm probably saying that wrong, from Gotham, an older version of that Gotham Central character. So overall, I didn't mind it. The art I thought was good. The art, I continue to like the art. It seems to work for me. The artist Romero does a reasonably good job here. I enjoyed it. What about yourself?
It's funny what we fixate on when we read things. So yeah, when Zealot walked out, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not up for killing Amazons." I didn't at any point take that to mean Zealot even thought Black Canary would kill or what have you. I took it more to be, okay, if you're gonna invade the island of Themyscira, like shit's gonna go down, and the Amazons are warriors, and there's gonna be a battle, and people could get killed. I could be, if I go on this mission and we invade Themyscira, and the Amazons know that we're invading Themyscira, then I'm gonna have to go toe to toe with Amazons, and I'm Zealot, and I kill people. Like that's what I took it. I didn't take it that Zealot ever thought for any point in time that Black Canary was a killer or would entertain killing anybody, whatever. It was basically Zealot saying, okay, I'm a badass, and if I go on this mission, I'm going to have to fight Amazons, and if I fight Amazons, I'm going to kill Amazons because I'm Zealot, and that's what I do, and I'm better than an Amazon. So, yeah, I didn't really I didn't really see that. And then as far as
I think you're right. I think you're more right. I'm rereading it now. Yeah, I think that's more correct. I guess my first brush, that's sort of the impression I got. I just thought, Black Canary maybe should have done more to sort of prep them as to what's going on. That's the one thing that throws me off. We're 2 issues in here, and we really have no idea in terms of how sin got there and what have you. So part of it just sort of bears out maybe my little bit of frustration, and we're not getting enough information. And I feel that the teammates are as much in the dark maybe as the reader is.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's sort of interesting because while while I agree with you that there's a lot of things that we don't yet know, at the same time, like by the end of the second issue, we're on the island. I mean, we're not. They are there. They're about to invade the island. So it's kind of interesting because when you look at it, on the one hand, yeah, it's set up, and sort of trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. But on the other hand, if you're talking about a traditional heist story, and that's what this feels like. This feels like a jailbreak or a heist or something like that. There's going to be this point where everything is being kind of planned out, and everything is being sort of shown to the reader, like, and so in that way, like if you think about, I don't know, like maybe a heist film that everybody knows, right? Like Heat um, or Ocean's 11, right? Like the whole entire movie is all a buildup to like the last 20 minutes, right? The actual heist. So when you think about it, it's like 80% of the movie sets up the last 20% of the movie.
Yeah.
So, if we're talking like this is a 6-issue series, you should think the first 5 issues are technically all set up, right? they're all set up in terms of, how are they going to go and break sin out. So from that perspective, this did feel like, in a way, yeah, we haven't gotten answers. We don't know why sin is there. There's hints of some terrible thing that's going to happen that is not only going to kill all the Amazons, but it's going to threaten the whole world and that sort of thing. And so from that perspective, it's like, yeah, I don't mind the setup. I'm not surprised that we haven't gotten a lot more answers. Like I can see both sides of it. Like I could see people going, well, I was really hoping for more because this feels like all set up. But then at the same time, I'm like, it does feel like setup, but it's supposed to feel like setup because it is set up. It's set up for this heist. And the other thing that's being established by Kelly Thompson, I think, more than anything, is the interactions, like the way the relationships are going to go. I mean, we get a chance to see Harley Quinn sort of tailing Zealot, following her around. You can see that she's just badass, and Harley's kind of idolizing her and what have you. So we see that. We see the relationship develop more between Barda and Cassandra Cain, with Barda call her Little Bat and that sort of thing. If there's anything to nitpick, it might be that whole situation with Zealot, like I was talking about where she's worried that she's going to be put in a position where she's going to have to kill Amazons, and her belief is that she will successfully be able to kill them. What's going to be the case if she's actually confronted with them, and the fact that that's what she's worried about, and then Canary goes and talks to her, and maybe there's stuff that happened that we weren't aware of, because it didn't really seem like Canary put forth an argument that would assuage any of those fears for Zealot, right? Well, she says in the initial briefing or whatever, yeah, hopefully if things go right, the Amazons won't even know we're there. We'll sneak in, we'll sneak out. But then even when Barda asks Black Canary, what do you think the chances are of that? Well, almost none. Okay, so, and then she tells Zealot again, yeah, we're just going to sneak in and sneak out, and hopefully the Amazons won't even know we're there. But again, she acknowledges that's probably not going to be the case. They're probably not going to be able to sneak in and sneak out. So what exactly does, like, what information does Black Canary give Zealot where Zealot goes, okay, I guess I won't be confronting Amazon? Like, maybe she just decides, okay, well, I owe Black Canary, and I'll just suck it up and try not to kill Amazon. So I mean, this is a situation where it's a good story. Right now, we're really focused on setting up the interactions, the between the characters, the relationship between the characters, and as far as how successfully the actual mission, or if it makes sense or whatever, it's going to be one of those situations where we're not going to know until after. We're not going to know until after the whole mission has been undertaken, because it all has to be tied together, right? Like, again, I'll use Ocean's 11 as an example. There's so many things that happen early on in that movie, the first time you watch it, that you don't have any idea what's going on. Like, you really don't, because you don't have the context of what comes later. But then if you, on subsequent watchings, then you know how it all plays out. So it makes a lot of sense. And you're like, okay, you can buy that. And yeah, with any heist movie, there's always things they don't show that you always kind of wonder about. Tower Heist is another one with Ben Stiller that I think about. Like, they stole this guy's car that was made out of gold, and they lowered it down the side of a building, and then into another room of the building, and then got it to like this freight elevator. Um, and then the next time you see the car, it's in the back of this like panel truck, right? Like this truck, and it's like, that's not easy to do, to get a car out of this elevator where you got it into this truck. Like, but they just skipped over that whole part. Like, yeah. So it's because it's convenient. Maybe you just run out of time, or you don't have the real estate to tell the story. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be situations like that where things don't always make 100% sense, and you just have to kind of buy into it. And if the rest of the story is good enough, you say, okay. So I think that's what Kelly Thompson's doing here. She's establishing the fact that what we're really talking about here is, and focused on here, is the relationship between these characters more than anything else. And so as long as that, ultimately is satisfying, then, maybe we'll forgive any other little idiosyncrasies that don't necessarily make sense. But as far as the art goes, the art is interesting to me. It reminded me a little bit, in no way is it as kind of luscious as Greg Smallwood's art was on Human Target, but it does have a little bit of that feel, right? A little bit of that mod feel. It's not really bright colors. It's even, in fact, less bright colors than we got in Human Target, but there's a feel to it that is something that's kind of all its own, and it's not the typical DC house style, and it does sort of suit that mod feel. So I was a big fan of the art overall. So
yeah, I will say, I'll quickly add that one of the other things that I noticed is that if we're, in terms of continuity, the world is against the Amazons right now, or the U.S. is, and I find it interesting that they could just sneak up on a boat with King Shark, and you would think they'd be monitored by U.S. battleships of the Navy. That that Themyscira would be under observation by the U.S. military and the Navy. But again, another continuity nitpick. But there's a number of continuity nitpicks I'm going to have in the titles this week. But the fact is, this is meant to be a fun comic, and there are aspects of this that do remind me of Gail Simone's Birds of Prey run, where she was pretty good at building rapport between the characters herself. So,
yeah, and another thing, I did appreciate you mentioned that the whole Amazon, have their fallout with the U.S. government or whatever. I did appreciate that they at least mentioned that. They're like, maybe it'll be easier to sneak on the island because the Amazons are having trouble right now with the U.S. government, and then they go, or it could go the other way.
Exactly,
and they're going to be on full alert because of that. So yeah, I did appreciate that. All right, up next we have Peacemaker Tries Hard, issue number 6, the final issue of the series, written by Kyle Starks, art by Steve Pugh, colors by Jordi Belair, letters by Becca Carey. What'd you think of this?
Again, consistently, issue after issue, and this is the final issue, book 6. This has just been usually consistently one of the better publications that DC has had, quite frankly, in terms of quality storytelling, fantastic art, and just plain good humor, a lot of fun, and true to the source material upon which it is based, and that is the HBO Peacemaker. And I love the fact that it embraces John Cena's iteration of Peacemaker, and a fantastic effect. Kudos to Kyle Starks, the writer. He continues to do a great job. Art by Steve Pugh, colors by Jordi Belair. I love the Red Bee here. There's a final battle with Chemo. Red Bee ends up getting into the war wheel, takes out the war wheel. He ends up sacrificing himself all for Peacemaker. Peacemaker at the end is reunited with the group of eclectic morons, sort of old wartime veterans that he met in issue 2 or 3, and then ends up battling the demolition crew at the end, who much to their chagrin end up attacking Peacemaker, only to find out that King Shark and all his other and Harley Quinn and Amanda Waller even shows up at his birthday party at the end. This was funny. This was all the dialogue, all the type of stuff that if you were a fan of the Peacemaker, you have every reason to pick this issue up. This was a lot of fun. The art's fantastic. There was a sequence where Peacemaker's taking on chemo and he's using the laser beam out of his helmet, and it was just very, very well done. Even had some emotional resonance with Red Bee and the Red Bee reminiscing in his war years, losing all his war buddies, killed by. Ironically, they were killed by the War Wheel, and he ends up using the War Wheel to defeat chemo. And it was just really well done. And Red Bee won't let Peacemaker sacrifice himself at the end, so he gets rid of Peacemaker out of the War Wheel to get the job done. And it was very, very well done. And Red Bee wishes him a happy birthday before sacrificing himself to take out chemo. I thought it worked. And then of course it wouldn't be complete without Bruce Wayne the dog, of course playing a significant role. Again, just really well done. And I could easily imagine this being a slightly more expensive 6-episode Peacemaker HBO series of episodes, but the special effects would cost money. But I thought this was really well done, and I would love to see the Red Bee be on the HBO special because he's got a ridiculously crazy outfit with the beard and the mask. I think that it's an eclectic enough character. I would love for the HBO show to pick up on Red Bee. I think he would be a hilarious character, and imagine having a single Bumblebee on the show. I think it would be absolutely hilarious. So, but what do you think?
Yeah, I don't really have too much else to add. I mean, like you said, it was a heck of a lot of fun. I can't speak to how well it might pay homage to the TV series, because I never saw any of the TV series, and I haven't seen the Suicide Squad movie either, so I can't speak to it. All I can say is this was a lot of fun, and what I really appreciated was the characterization of Peacemaker and kind of the interactions and sort of the potty humor, I guess I'll call it. More than anything, really sold the series for me. It made it fun. The point of the series wasn't Peacemaker and the Red Bee teaming up, or trying to take out Monsieur Mala and the Brain. Like none of that was the point of the series. The point of the series was the jokes, the humor, the interaction of Peacemaker with these various characters, and just how much of a, I don't know, for lack of a better term, a doofus that he kind of is, more than anything else. So, that to me, that's what really stuck out about the series. So, so from that perspective, this was a very successful series. I think it worked really, really well, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. So, yeah. And again, the Steve Pugh art I thought was fantastic. There was nothing about the series that didn't land for me. And again, I haven't watched any of the TV series, so I'm not familiar with John Cena as Peacemaker or any of that sort of thing. So, if somebody who's not familiar with any of that stuff at all can pick this up and read it and just have a rip roaring good time, I think that says a lot about just how fun this series is. So. That being said, if you are a fan of the series, if you did like the Peacemaker character in James Gunn's Suicide Squad, if you're a fan of the TV show, I think ultimately this is going to be a series that really lands for you. So yeah, definitely recommend it. I imagine that it'll probably do really well in trade. Have any number of people that'll pick it up in trade to read it, and yeah, it'll be a nice addition to people's bookshelves.
Yeah.
All right, moving on next to our latest edition of Gotham War Part 4 in Batman 138. It's written by Chip Zardasky, Jorge Jimenez as the artist, Tomeu Morey on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. Kind of an interesting one here. We get some backstory between Ra's al Ghul and
Vandal Savage.
and Vandal Savage. Like right from the start, Vandal Savage, talking about sort of what he's doing, the history of him, how talking about the meteor that gave him his powers, and about the fragments and how he feels. It's not so. I could imagine some people seeing this as sort of a ripoff of the Infinity Gems. I will not call them Infinity Stones like they do in the movie, because they're Infinity Gems in the comics, and that's what they'll always be, or what they were first. I think they've changed it now in the comics. And
Yeah.
again, anybody who listens to the podcast knows, for a long time knows I hate it when they change things in the comic to match the movies. Movies need to match the comics. That's what came first. Anyway, but yeah, I could see people going, "Oh, it's just a MacGuffin hunt. It's Vandal Savage. They're ripping off, Infinity Gems or what have you." But this is a trope from way back, long before it. In fact, you could say the whole idea of the Infinity Gems, that was a MacGuffin hunt in and of itself, right? It's not the first time; it won't be the last time. But yeah, when you have to go and get all these different pieces and bring them together, and then it's going to, give somebody all kinds of powers and abilities, and it's a good plot device for telling a story. So we've got that going on with Vandal Savage and Ra's al Ghul, and then on the other side of it, we've got Batman, who we've talked a lot in the story about Batman sort of crossing the line and dealing with his trauma, and sort of being in the wrong, and kind of being surprised to the level of which Batman will go. But like it is plainly stated here, like he has given Jason Todd like fear toxin, so that every time Jason Todd's adrenaline spikes, he gets more scared. And Nightwing confronts him, and Damian tries to protect it, Bruce, but you can even see Damian starting to doubt what Bruce is doing, because this is horrific, right? Like he's saying, "Yeah, I'm doing this out of love." Like what? Like this is so far over the line. Like there's a lot of people. I remember when the whole brother eye thing, Batman spying on all other heroes, and eventually some villains, got that information, and then they knew how to defeat, and yeah, just all sorts of bad stuff.
Yeah.
But it was something that, like, I remember the debate, like, well, Batman, he's a hero, he's on the side of good, he wouldn't do that. Then there was the other side of it going, but Batman, he plans for everything, and so we could totally see him doing that. And it's that whole interesting dynamic that didn't ever used to be a part of Batman, probably until, I don't know, maybe the 90s, maybe later, late 90s, where there's this distrustfulness. Even Batman doesn't even trust the other heroes. Like you go back and you read Batman from the 80s, especially in Justice League, 70s, 80s, Bronze Age stuff. There's an implicit like trust and just a bond between Batman and the other heroes that he would never think to do it, right? Now Batman has been, we talked about the Power Crew, we talked about how he's leveled up, and the idea of him just being this lone crusader, which in a way I kind of think is what DC's sort of addressing here, right? Because Batman himself in the story is like, yeah, I used to be able to do this by myself. Maybe I should have never got all these kids involved. They're my family, and now they're in danger, but they're trying to stop me, and I'm just trying to do what's best and stop crime. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of complicated issues. So you give Zardasky and Tini Howard credit for coming up with this story where there's not like easy black and white answers. But what is pretty evident to me, and is sort of black and white, is Batman here is wrong. You can't mind control somebody. This is like fascism, like to the highest degree. You are drugging people. You are, stopping them from having free will. Like Batman is not a hero in the story. Like he is 100% the villain. So I'm not saying that what Selina is doing is right. I said this from the very beginning, from when we talked about, the Battle Begins, or whatever it was, Gotham War Battle Begins, or Prelude to War, whatever the hell it was. I said it's possible for two people to disagree, like Batman and Selina do, and for them both to be wrong. They are both wrong. Selina's solution of, we'll just do nonviolent crime, it's still crime. It's still wrong. But what Batman is doing is just as wrong, if not more wrong, by drugging Jason Todd, and by, physically fighting with Dick Grayson when Grayson goes and tries to shut down the Bat computer and limit the resources that Batman has. Like, this is not, again, I've said it before, as I have throughout the series, this is not a Bruce Wayne or Batman who's thinking clearly, because these things he's doing, they don't make any logical sense, right? Like, if he could just stop and set everything aside, set all the emotion aside for a second and think, he does everything for his parents, right? You could take that perspective. He does everything in the name of his parents to stop crime. And if he just stopped and thought, what would my mother think of this? What would my father think of this? There's no way he would ever do this, right?
Yeah.
I want to know where's Superman in this, right? Like, again, I know it's a Batman, and you can have that argument. Oh, who would win in a fight? Superman, Batman, whatever. It would be over in half a second. Superman would nuke him from space with his heat vision, and that's the end of it. So whatever, you can't. It wouldn't. The story would be over, right? There'd be no story to tell. So you can't really bring Superman in. But if Superman knew what was going on, we've seen so many times over the years, despite that change in Batman, like I was saying about how he's sort of distrusting now, and there's not that bond and inherent trust. We've seen even in this version of Batman that he does respect Clark very much and knows that Clark's always going to do the right thing. So maybe Clark says, I'm be like, dude, Bruce, what the hell are you doing? This is not okay. So again, he's been through a lot of trauma lately. I'm going to go with the official in-canon reason for this. Not the fact that he had his hand cut off, not the fact that he was thrown into another part of the multiverse and saw kind of what Gotham City would be like without him. Not anything to do with Failsafe or Zur-En-Arna's personality. The overriding reason that Bruce Wayne is doing this, the overriding reason he's not thinking logically, and he's drugged Jason Todd, and he's being a fascist and fighting with Dick Grayson, who, in my mind, is more of a son than Damian ever could be or is. Damian, obviously, more biological, but Dick, the more spiritual and probably more emotionally a son. None of that has anything to do with why Batman is doing this. I know he's been through all that recently. But the reason Batman is doing this, in my mind, is when he jumped from the moon, he got brain damage. And that is why he's doing this. He's got brain damage.
Yeah.
Like, everybody was all excited that he was able to jump from the moon and survive.
High altitude sickness.
Yeah, not come out of it unscathed. It turns out, no, he wasn't unscathed. He's got like 3 brain cells left. Permanent brain damage from the jump from the moon has caused Batman to act like this. I don't know what else makes sense, because this is. Yeah. I mean, you could argue that it's out of character, but kudos to Zardasky for setting up all that trauma, so you can point to that and go, okay, yeah, he jumped from the moon. It messed up his head, and that. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. He's not acting like a hero. He's just not. As far as the art goes, I mean, it's Jorge Jimenez art, so it's super dynamic. It's super kinetic. It's full of energy. The line work is not my favorite. It's a little stylized at times, but you can't deny that the art's impactful. So I prefer Jorge Jimenez art, even though he's not my favorite artist and it's not my favorite style. I prefer his art on books that are bombastic and over the top, because that's what his style is really suited for. So anyway, what are your thoughts? You think it's the brain damage from jumping from the moon?
I think it's they have to do something to make Selina look better, because Selina's in the wrong. And what better way to do that than make Batman go over the top? Because I mean, if Batman wasn't crazy and injecting fear gas into Jason Todd, then he would just be fighting another mobster, Selina Kyle, and rightly at some point arresting members of the Bat family for aiding and abetting a mobster, in my mind. So you got to make Batman look worse, and this is a good way of doing it. You're right
aiding
that this is
and abetting. How are they aiding? Keep in mind that he could technically, if you're going to arrest him for breaking the law, Batman would have to arrest himself, because he breaks the law all the time. They're all breaking the law. They're all out there beating on people. all the time.
Well, I'm just saying, like, there's the hypocrisy of the Bat family
But they're not. I mean, I
in
get
letting
what you're
Selena.
saying. Yeah, in spirit, but they're not going out. They're not aiding. They're not going out there and doing these high rise burglaries. I
No,
mean, I agree with you
they're
that
letting them go. They're not getting in the way. They know
okay,
what
but
Selena's doing.
so's every other citizen. Every other citizen is not stopping them either. They're not. Why are they obligated to stop them? How could you justify that's aiding and abetting? Because they have the ability to stop them and they're not stopping them. That's not a law in the U.S.
Well, not look. Yeah, fair enough. They're not aiding and abetting, correct? All right, but they're sitting idly by when they're knowing that is happening, and to me this is all just a smokescreen to deflect from the fact that the Bat family, knowing that they're giving Catwoman a free pass because they slept with Batman, and now suddenly Batman's a bad guy. By the way, what did Batman do wrong in this issue? He injected fear gas into Jason Todd, who has the distinction of being the only member of the Bat family, at least when Cassandra Cain has stopped killing, but he is a murderer and he does generally tend to kill once in a while. So I'm not going to lose sleep over what Batman did to Jason Todd. Is he clearly off his mind, out of his mind? He's possessed by the Batman of Zardasky, maybe multiversal versions of the Zardasky and the multiverse. You're right. He probably did have high altitude sickness from falling from the moon. But the bottom line is that this is what I find. I come at this from a very different angle. What I love about this storyline is Vandal Savage and Scandal Savage. To me, that's by far the most interesting aspect of this. Vandal Savage coming in to take over Gotham, and he's going to be immortal, and he's offering immortality to those who might follow him. And all that incredible history of Vandal Savage with his daughter Scandal, I think that's so awesome. The least favorite part of this storyline for me is the Gotham War that underpins it, is because the whole thing leaves a bad taste in my mouth. The whole thing leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't like this storyline. I was trying to think of an event in Batman that I've disliked more than Gotham War going back 25, 30 years. And I'm hard pressed to think the last time I was this disappointed with the storyline, especially coming out of one that had so much potential with Failsafe, and then this. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I also want to take another stab, respectfully at DC editorial. The manner in which Detective Comics is out of sync with Batman and Robin, and that Batman and Robin is out of sync with Batman. Here we have Damian and Bruce are getting along so well in Batman and Robin. Batman is, Bruce Wayne's putting his son into school and what have you. And here Damian is crying because Batman leaves him after getting into a fight with Tim Drake and Nightwing. Batman's taking off and Damian is like crying, and it's just out of sync. All these things are out of sync. We got three obviously very separate storylines here. Yet we know Vandal Savage actually entered Gotham through Detective Comics, through Ram V's Detective Comics, but he ends up now in Batman. And the whole thing just seems disjointed to me, and it just doesn't work. The best storyline that I'm enjoying the one in Detective Comics the most, because I think Ram V, I like with Barbados. It's funny, Batman of Zardasky is causing Batman to do this. Where's Barbados? Isn't Barbados also in Batman's head? He is over in Detective Comics. Nothing. Where's the Orgum family during the Gotham War? Aren't they supposed to be? I realize that we're supposed to disconnect ourselves, but it gets a little bit as someone who reads all the Batman comics. It gets a little frustrating. There's not a great deal of consistency here where they're building on every storyline's strengths, but. As a compliment, I love what Zardasky and Teenie Howard are doing with Vandal Savage and Scandal Savage. I'm less a fan of what it says, and I think it gets worse. The relationship between Bruce and Selena, it isn't going to be getting it. I just think that this builds on a premise that I can't accept from the beginning, and I can't accept it, and so this entire storyline is completely tainted for me, and it's not going to repair itself. I already read the next chapter. It doesn't get any better, but I understand. I love Vandal Savage, and I love Scandal Savage, and I hope if I had my wish, it would be Scandal Savage for the win, for taking over Gotham at the end of the day, just to rock the boat, you know. But sorry, a little bit of a rant there, but this whole thing just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, we come at this from such a different perspective. This is so. Is it my favorite Batman event? No. Does it come close? No. Is it the worst Batman event ever? Not even close. There are so many worse Batman events, non-events, whatever. The interesting aspect of this is that the fact that neither one of them is right. There is no right answer, but it is a complicated social issue, in terms of, okay, if crime goes down, and you point at Batman as Batman's absence as the reason, and allowing Catwoman to, have these high-rise burglaries. So these these criminals that formerly were committing violent crimes are no longer committing violent crimes. Like, that's not right. It's still wrong. We agree that, from that perspective, but it's also not an easy solution. There's no, necessarily right answer or wrong answer. The fact that you could even at some point say, well, yeah, I'm sorry that Batman is, drugging this person and robbing them of their free will, but he's killed people in the past, so that's fine. So it's okay. Like, I'm just, yeah, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. And I get what you're saying, because, we had this long conversation and disagreement when we first started discussing this. And the fact that you're saying, you just can't accept the premise, then yeah, if you can't accept, okay, DC editorial is saying these are the facts. This is the setting that's allowing this event to unfold and these decisions to be made and why these characters are making it. If you can't accept that,
yeah,
and that's what you're saying, then yeah. It's not going to work for you, whatever. Like,
yeah.
I don't look at it like that. I don't have any choice but to. If I want to read Batman, if I want to, read DC Comics, I have to accept the fact that DC Comics, they're the ones that control the universe, and they're saying, this is what's happening. This is the setting. So I don't have a choice whether to accept that. I could be like, man, I hate this story so much. Fuck that. It doesn't make any sense to me. I reject it outright. And yeah, then it's going to be an absolutely garbage story, because it's all based on things that I don't accept as reality. But I don't feel like I have that. I don't have that option. DC Comics is saying, this is what's happening. This is the state of Gotham right now. This is the way things are. And as far as, I know we go round and round with the whole, you denounce all the rest of the Batman family except for Damian and Bruce, because they're allowing Catwoman to, have this crime wave and all this stuff. And I keep looking at it as, before they even had a chance, right? Like, go back to that first moment when they found out, in that meeting with Selina, that this was happening, right? That she was, recruiting former henchmen from various supervillains from Gotham City, and recruiting them and saying, okay, we're going to be doing these high-rise crimes, non-violent crimes, and you can get rich or whatever. Right? Like, right. You go back and look at that first issue where that's said, and Nightwing from the beginning is like, this isn't right. He goes, this is wrong. They push back on it. That's their first reaction. And then logically, after thinking about it for a second, logically, Tim's like, well, hold on a second. Violent crime is down 70%. Again, we set aside the fact that doesn't make any sense and probably wouldn't happen. It's not realistic, whatever. DC's telling us that's what's happened. That's what's happening. And Tim says, well, hold on. We should go and look at what Selina's doing with these people. Look at, the fact that violent crime is down. How can we take advantage of this? How can we maintain that lower level of crime and then also stop Selina from, stop these people from, robbing from these high-rise burglaries, robbing from the rich, whatever, and enriching themselves. Like, but before they could even do any of that, before they really can look at it from a logical standpoint, Batman flips out, runs off, and there's all this distrust. The Gotham War starts at that point, right? All the distrust. So in my mind, you're like, okay, well, why aren't these members of the Bat family out there stopping Selina, stopping whatever. Right now, they're focused on stopping Bruce because he's in Crazy Town. I don't think they're that worried about, okay, Selina's got this school where she's teaching all these people how to be cat burglars. That's not their focus right now. Their focus is, we have to stop Batman because he's, no pun intended, batshit crazy right now. So, if it were a situation where, okay, we're going to figure out what's wrong with Bruce, we're going to take him to the Heroes in Sanctuary, we're going to take him to the dark side of the moon, we're going to take him to the Fortress of Solitude, we're going to go somewhere and so he can figure his shit out. Then we can come back and figure out, okay, what are we going to do about Selina? But you're making it like they tacitly agree with her because they're not out there trying to stop. If I'm Dick Grayson and Batman's doing what he's doing, yeah. And it's not like it's been weeks and months or whatever. It's been, in my mind, a matter of hours, if maybe a day or two. So Batman's flipping out. I'm only focused on Batman. I don't give a shit about somebody that Selina trained that's going over and stealing some jewels or whatever. My focus right now is I got to figure out what the hell's wrong with Bruce. And he seems to only be getting worse, evidenced by the fact that he drugged Jason Todd. Like, whether or not Jason, deserved it or not, we can even set that aside, right? Heroes don't do that. You don't brainwash somebody. You don't inject somebody with fear toxin. You don't try to control somebody else's life where I'm going to make it where every time he has adrenaline dumped into his system, he's terrified. He's not going to be able to live a normal life. He'll have to give up, whatever normal life for Red Hood would be. But he's not going to be able to be Red Hood. And he's also not going to be able to even live a normal life because he's so debilitated. That's not being a hero. So in my mind, I don't think there's anything going on with any sort of tacit agreement with the rest of the Bat family that are agreeing. Again, I think I've said it before. There's a part of them that are afraid to go after Selina because of the history with Selina and Bruce, which in my mind should not be a thing, right? Selina and Bruce, their relationship should never have been a thing. I don't like them together. I've said that over and over. And if that's the case, and again, I can't say that that's the case because I got to accept what DC tells me. But in that world, they go after Catwoman and whatever. It's not a problem. But in this world where they almost got married, there's going to be pushback right there. They can't just say, okay, I'm going after Selina and I don't care what Bruce thinks. I mean, he's their mentor. He's their hero. He's their leader. He's more than a father to them, right? So that's part of the reason I imagine they're also concerned and they're not worried about what Selina's
I can buy I can buy that if in your head canon that this has taken place over the span of 72 hours. Okay,
yeah, I mean, it hasn't shown that it hasn't.
Well, it kind of has if you want to take into consideration that Selina's been doing this for literally 8 weeks prior.
Yeah, but Batman wasn't there, and they didn't know about it.
Yeah, no,
I know you go back to, well, they should have known if they're the detectives, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
again,
but you're
I have to
missing
accept
Jason.
what DC tells me.
Yeah. First of all, I don't have to. It still has to possess some verisimilitude in my mind. And Jason Todd,
and Jason
Todd, and Catwoman he's been involved, and that's what that Catwoman Jason Todd 2-issue series is about. Is Jason Todd was part of the training of her men, and his infiltrating that. Again, the whole thing. I mean, and how insulting it is to the integrity of the Bat family that they're incapable of doing two things at once, namely think two separate thoughts. Number one, we have to take down the mobster called Selina Kyle. And two, we have to help Batman. Because both of them are in the wrong. And Batman's going insane. And I know you acknowledge that what Selina Kyle's done wrong is wrong as well. I get that. You've said that more than once. And I fully accept that. But the bottom line is to turn all this, and the focus of this story has been nothing but, I think, a convenient smokescreen to try to make, you got to make Batman even worse. Batman right now has a mental health issue, which isn't that much of a stretch, but it's still, in my mind, you've got significant problems with Selina on the side there, that has to be dealt with. And, well, there's so much going on right now, it just seems like... it's like the Huntress said in the JSA number 6 when she says to her dad, you and Mom are about to have a hell of a fight. But in any event, I
I hear what you're saying, right? Okay, so what Catwoman is doing is wrong. We agree there, right? What Catwoman is doing is wrong. But again, yes, it does, and I've said this. I said this when we reviewed it last week about the whole Red Hood one, and it said it started 2 weeks ago. Yes, it doesn't make sense, but because that was before Batman was awake, but and he doesn't show up in the story, so that makes sense. So Jason Todd knew before everybody else, but that's not the impression we got in the first issue of this, in the prelude. So that doesn't make sense either. So yeah, it's not put together correctly. But to your point about, okay, well, the reason Batman has to be doing this absolute batshit crazy stuff is because Selina's wrong, and so you've got to have to make her look better and not as wrong. Yeah. You have to have Batman doing stuff that's more wrong.
Yeah, like I want to be clear.
How does it? Why? What? Who? In whose mind? Who gives a shit? Like, what agenda are we trying to solve here? Who cares if Catwoman's doing something right or wrong in terms of who Catwoman is as a character? She started as a villain, so what difference does it make? I don't understand your reasoning. Why? Like, why are you? What is the reasoning behind? And what is the end game for saying, okay, Selina's in the wrong? We have to have Batman do something wrong also to make Selina look better. Why are we trying to make Selina look better, I guess, is what I don't understand. What makes you think they want Selina to look better?
Well, why do I think that? Because I think they pretty much have to, because in my mind, she is so obviously in the wrong. Because otherwise, if Batman was of a sound mind, if Batman was of a sound mind right now, what would he be doing? You seem to be of the mindset that Batman, if he was of sound mind, is going to go sit there and have a long conversation with Selina and they're going to like work things out.
When did I ever say that? No. If Batman's in his right mind, he stops Selina from having the school and from
right, and the way
increasing high-rise crimes. But I think Batman also realizes there's value in the crime rate dropping 70%, and he's going to try to find a way to maintain that drop. You know, he's going to try to find a way from preventing these henchmen from going back to working for Two-Face or the Joker or whatever. He's going to try to find a way to do that. Maybe it's a school of his own where he trains these people to be some sort of like guardian angel type people, neighborhood watch type situation. You know, and funds it himself with money from, you know, or ask Dick to help fund it with money from that Alfred left him. That's my point. I don't think he, you know, sits down and has a long talk and says, okay, I'm going to let you keep doing this. No, he stops her 100%. But you keep saying that they're trying to make Catwoman's wrong, and so they got to make Batman do something even more wrong to make her look better. Why? My point is, why are they trying to make her look better? And you can't say
in order to create false tension. And so, in other words, you try. So, in order to distract from the fact that that in my view, she is in the wrong. I mean, she is. That's why. I mean, look, I think that at the end of the day, there's the most interesting parts of this story are. As I said, for me, it's Vandal Savage and Scandal Savage, and the Gotham War is just an unpleasant.
I hate Vandal Savage as a character. He's so stupid. A caveman that found a meteorite and gets smart. Really?
Well, no, fair enough. If you disagree, you disagree. But I'm just saying that. Look, you're not going to. We'll just have to agree and disagree on this. I'm not going to be convinced that the Bat family is in the right on this, but I will grant you this. I will grant you this.
Right.
I will grant you this, that if this, I can see if this was something that has taken place over 72 hours, boom, they find out in the meeting, 5 hours later, Batman's attacking this, he's not getting any sleep, he's going crazy, 48 hours later, 72 hours later, all this is happening so fast, Jason Todd, all the events of Jason Todd and Catwoman, all that's happened within a span of 72 hours. They haven't even had enough time to negotiate or to talk, to have meetings. I can buy into that. But reading all these stories separately, I'm getting the impression that this has been taking place over it feels like more than a few weeks have passed since Selina has implemented this, since the Bat family has found out about it at that meeting. And it just, you know, again,
nothing that's happened makes it seem like weeks, a couple days at most. Now, again, that's setting aside the Red Hood Gotham thing, because that says 2 weeks ago, but Batman's not in that. Everything that happens with Mr. Freeze and with Red Hood training those guys and whatever, that all appears to happen before Bruce wakes up. So, but again, DC hasn't done a good job, on explaining the timeline or what have you. But yeah, we'll just have to agree to disagree. Like I never once have said that Selina's right. Selina's wrong. The Bat family's wrong for not stopping her. Batman's wrong for flying and off his handle, totally losing his shit and drugging people and brainwashing them. But I give the Bat family, more than anybody, I give the Bat family a pass because they're caught in the middle between Selina and Bruce. And also, this is shocking to them that Batman's acting this way. And in my mind, that's their focus. That is more important than some jewels or some, cash that's being stole out of some penthouse safe. So, again, even if weeks are going by, and, that's going to be, if I'm Dick Grayson, that's 100% my focus. So, yeah, I get they can do two things at once. Yeah, but I'm going to be focused on this, and I'll worry about Selina later. I got to get Batman help first. But again, DC editorial, to your point about this not being a very good event, the fact that we don't know the timeline, the fact that we don't know how long this has taken, the fact that you have an issue that comes out that ties into this that says 2 weeks ago, yeah. So anyway, let us know in the comments what you think. Are you team Batman? Are you team Selina? Are you team you're both wrong like I am?
I will say that City of Bane was worse than this. So there was at least one thing in my past that was worse than this storyline so far. But
I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of City of Bane. Is it worse than this? I don't think so. I probably enjoyed, but City of Bane had Thomas Wayne Batman, even though it wasn't my favorite characterization.
It killed Alfred.
I was going to say it did kill Alfred in that, but in fairness to Tom King, he did not want to kill Alfred. It was going to be a fake out.
Right.
And then Dan Didio said, no, that'll be great. Yeah, let's
leave him dead.
Kill him dead. So anyway, more than enough about Gotham War. Maybe we won't even review any of the rest of it since it takes us so long. Blue Beetle #2, Scarab War Chapter 2 from writer Josh Trujillo. Adriana Gutierrez is the artist. Will Quintana on colors. Lucas Catoni on letters. We saw Ted Kord get the crap beat out of him last issue. That's where this issue starts, with Ted in the hospital. There's some members of JLI there. Ted Kord's teammates, Fire, Ice, Booster, Guy Gardner, and Jaime's there as well. He feels guilty. He wasn't there to help protect Ted. Meanwhile, Victoria Kord's trying to figure out what's going on. Interesting. Victoria Kord in the comics, she's not quite, she was out and out the villain in the movie. In the comics, she's a little more ambiguous, I guess. There are some vibes you get from her that, maybe she's not on the up and up, but then at the same time, just seems like she wants what's best for the company, and she is ambitious. But you could say that was the downfall of the, woman in the movie as well. However, this Victoria Kord at least hasn't kidnapped anybody or performed any experiments that we know of, tortured people or performed, experiments on people. So, I guess we'll see how that goes. But, she does seem to fire people on a whim, but there are plenty of executives that do that sort of stuff. So, there is very much of a Blue Beetle feel to this. You've mentioned it before. Who this villain is, we don't yet know. It's almost like he's the Red Beetle, if you will. We've got the Blue Beetle. We've been introduced to the other two that are now sort of teammates or colleagues or allies of Ted Kord, the Green Beetle and the Yellow Beetle. So how it all plays out, I guess we'll have to wait and see. They all seem to have ties to the Reach. They all have scarabs, obviously. So next issue, it's teased that we're going to get into the mystery of the Blood Scarab. I guess that's what this guy's name is. He hasn't been named in the comic yet. He even, when when Jaime Reyes asks him, "Who are you?" he says, "Not yet," and he teleports away. And we're also going to get some Tracy 13, the ex-girlfriend of Blue Beetle, because there may be magic in some way wrapped up with who the Blood Scarab is and who his abilities and his powers and what have you. So so basically, like I said, the Power Rangers feel we've got the Red Beetle or Blood Scarab, whatever. We've got Red Beetle, we've got Blue, we've got Green, we've got Yellow. So I'm not even sure what else we're missing. Oh, Yellow, I get. No, we have Yellow. We have Yellow, Green, Blue, Red. I'm not a Power Ranger guy. Can you tell? But
we got Yellow. We got Yellow already. Why am I not?
I forget. I guess she's gold, yellow, what have you.
Oh, okay. Geez, I'm missing a color.
Yeah, I mean, what the Power Rangers were. I know there was like a white one and a black one, but they were like the superpowered ones, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what color we're missing. Red, blue, green, yellow.
Yeah.
Is that all of them? And then they would form
red, green. Yeah, I guess we do. I'm trying. I can never remember the name of their scarab. Each of their Beetles scarab have a separate name, and they identified them here, but I've yet to put the names of the various Beetles to memory.
There's people screaming. There's people that are screaming right now. Listening to the podcast, going pink Ranger, pink Ranger. That's what I forgot. So yeah, no pink Beetle yet. But yeah, we all the different scarabs have names. And I mean, Kaji Da obviously is the blue Beetles. But then it's like, not only do we have to remember, or should we remember the names of the scarabs, but then each of the characters have names as well that aren't.
Yeah, Noldar is one Beetle, is the name of the one Beetle, Noldar, and the other one is Olmex.
Yeah. But then Zyomara is the name of the yellow Beetle, or the gold,
right.
But she also has another name. What was it? Zan something?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, we're so bad.
Sooner or later, I'll put these characters to memory. It's because I got it. Well, I'll let you finish your review, but I really enjoyed this issue. It's one of my favorites of the week.
No, you know what? I'm gonna look up the names right now, and I enjoyed it. The art was dynamic. The Adrian Gutierrez art has been, really dynamic throughout. I was a little nitpicky last time that he was doing some of the ink splash kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and he does it here as well, but I don't know. Maybe it's growing on me, or it just works in this artwork. So, they're not. Yeah, they're not listed on this site that I'm looking at. So I'll look it up while you give us your thoughts.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought emotionally this issue worked really well. I really love the fact that I love that Josh Torello, he has enough sense, obviously, to have Blue Beetle and Fire and Ice at the bedside of Ted Cord, who is, unbelievably how he managed to survive being run through with a sword by this enemy Red Beetle. I'll never know, but it is comics after all. Even Guy Gardner shows up via Green Lantern light and saying, he'll come back to help find the guy who did it. I like the characterization of Fire and Ice here. They're there to support Jamie or Jaime, sorry, and I thought it was well done. And I also thought was very subtle when it showed his sister's, is Ted Cord's sister, is Victoria Cord. Is that who it is? Victoria.
Yep, Victoria.
Yeah, I love the scene where she's actually hiding a tear. She's kind of a bitch. Victoria Cord is a high and mighty. She's a narcissistic bitch, and she treats her staff terribly. She's holier than thou. But she's wiping tears under. She's wearing dark sunglasses as she's looking at the crime scene. She's staring at a crime scene where all the blood on the ground is that of her brother, and she's still trying to sound like she's still coming across like a business, like a real bitch, but yet she's stifling and tears under the glasses. And I thought that really showed that as much as a hard ass bitch that she can be, this is a woman that actually, God forbid, she actually has emotions. And I thought Josh Torello did a really good job with that. And then also, I mean, this issue had literally everything: the ambit of emotions, the gambit of emotions. Sorry, that's for the armpit of emotions. But showing all the Beetles, and then the Red Beetle shows up, a huge fight. It's still mysterious as to what this Red Beetle's agenda is. Is it a man or a woman? We don't even know that really. and he's extremely, he or she, whoever this Red Beetle is extremely powerful, and handily takes out the Beetles and is about to attack Blue Beetle, but then decides not to at the end. And yeah, in the meantime, we got this alien race who's these alien immigrants to Earth that want to find it. They have their own agenda. They want to immigrate to Earth, and they have their own agenda in case Earth, we Terrans don't accept them. So we got this subplots going on behind the scenes, and all of this, I think fantastic art. I'm looking forward to Tracy 13 showing up on the scene. Full disclosure, I had no idea. If Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes had a girlfriend, Tracy 13. I completely forgot that. I'm drawing a blank. I'm gonna have to go on my DC Universe app and try to read those. I completely forgot he ever had a girlfriend, Tracy 13. I don't remember that. So
I think it must have happened pre New 52.
yeah,
Because I think I've read all the New 52 Blue Beetle stuff, and I don't remember him dating Tracy 13 either. But maybe I missed it. Maybe I just forgot. I don't know. So my guess was it was pre New 52, but I don't know. But anyway, Dynastis, that's the name of the yellow beetle. Xiomara is her real name. Xiomara Arazo. Yeah. She's from El Salvador. And yeah, her main alias is Dynastis, and then Yellow Beetle. And then, I don't know why. It doesn't say here what the name of the beetle itself is. Maybe that's the name of the beetle. No, doesn't she say it's Noldar, right?
Well, that's what she says. Yeah, Noldar, yeah.
So it's like, God, how many names does she need? Like, I get you have your regular name before, but then instead of being called Blue Beetle, she's going to be called Dynastis, but then also Yellow Beetle. Like, ooh, man, it's kind of rough. And then the other one, she says in this issue, just a goth girl from Bloodhaven. Her name is Roma, but we don't know her last name yet. Her alias, it says, is Nitida. Nitida, obviously known as the Green Beetle, and then don't know the name of the scarab itself yet. So it's like, man, it's hard enough to remember all these new characters that are coming in. When each of these characters had okay, so you got to know their name, their the actual person's name before they got any powers. You got to know the name of the scarab. You got to know the name of the hero. And then I guess it's easy to know if it's Green Beetle, Yellow Beetle, Blue, because all I got to do is look at him. But then you sort of start to feel bad for Jaime Reyes because he's Jaime Reyes and Blue Beetle, but he doesn't have like a cool name like Natida or Dynasties. He's just always...
I know it is weird. But you know what? Yeah. In my defense and in our defense, I've heard of the Power Rangers, and to this day, I've got no idea what the Power Rangers' names are. I got the Red Power Rangers. I have no idea what they're.
I couldn't even remember the color of the Fifth Ranger. I had to pull up a picture. I went, okay, there's red, yellow, green, blue. Oh, pink. Pink is the. Yeah. Again, I've never seen an episode of Power Rangers, so sorry. It was that had passed us by. We're a little old for Power Rangers, so sorry about that, everybody. All right, up next we have Shazam number 4, written by Mark Waid. Well, Mark Waid and Dan Mora are credited as storytellers, so I'll credit them here as such. Obviously, Mora handling the art as well. Alejandro Sanchez on colors, Troy Petrie on letters. Well, last issue ended with Shazam or Captain Marvel heading to the moon and confronting Gargax because the apes of Gorilla City said that he was there building a nuclear missile to fire at Earth and using ape technology to do so. So Captain Marvel, being the hero that he is, flies to the moon, confronts Gargax, and that's where this issue picks up. So what do you think of this, Rock?
What I enjoyed most about this issue is while Shazam is on the moon confronting Gargax is in fact one of the minions, or he's Gargax. The one who's really in charge is the Queen Bee, and she's of course on the cover, and it's a beautiful cover on his knees for the Queen of the Bees. And what I love about the cover is that the cover with Shazam on his knees giving a rose to Queen Bee is exactly it's at least it's symbolic of what takes place in the comic. And what I like what Mark Waid is doing here, and it wasn't. We knew that the gods, of Zeus, Solomon, and Achilles and all the gods and Hercules that gave Shazam his powers. They're what's coming through in this storyline is all their flaws of character, all their weaknesses, and I love the fact that Zeus is the philanderer. Zeus is the who likes to seduce women. Of course, Zeus is the number of women that have graced Zeus's bedroom has probably been innumerable. And of course, right away through Shazam's eyes, Zeus is attracted to Queen Bee, and it's almost kind of almost a little bit kind of creepy that all the gods can manipulate. Because it's funny that when I think of Shazam, most of us, when we think of Shazam, we think that the gods are sharing with Shazam their powers. But I never thought of it like Mark Waid is writing it, that they can also share through Shazam their weaknesses and their flaws of character, not just their strengths, but the weaknesses and flaws of the characters of the gods can also have some influence on Shazam. I never really thought of that before, but it was really hammered home to me when Zeus, through Shazam, is trying to seduce Queen Bee. And of course, Queen Bee is such a narcissist, and she thinks she's the bee's knees, the bee's wax, so to speak. She's attracted to Shazam, and of course Billy Batson, who's within the mind of Shazam, he sees this happening, and this young boy seeing, it must be kind of creepy. There's this young Billy Batson within the consciousness of Shazam, seeing that Zeus is using Shazam to get sexually close to Queen Bee. He panics and yells Shazam, and that hit, the lightning hits, and he turns back into Billy Batson while the Queen Bee gets sent back. I thought that was so well played. I thought the humor, I thought it worked so well. I loved Shazam trying to talk like a womanizer to Queen Bee. And because whenever we think of Shazam, he always has the voice of Billy Batson. This is Shazam with the voice of Zeus, and it really comes through. And there's also the ignorance of Atlas that comes through, because Atlas, Mark Waid gave an interview recently on Word Balloon, and he said like Atlas is very strong. He can hold up the world on his shoulders, but Atlas is kind of dense. He's not too smart. Well, Solomon is the wisdom. He's the wise guy. He's the guy with the wisdom. And Zeus has the power of the lightning, but he's a philanderer. And all these, they all have their various weaknesses. And the various weaknesses of the gods are discussed here. And Solomon, in trying to look for help to help Billy overcome this game of the gods, so to speak, Solomon goes to Freddy, his Billy's friend Freddy, to maybe get the other members of the Bat family. And I got the impression that Solomon is maybe trying to give Freddie Freeman some wisdom in order to help him help Billy. And so all the members of the Bat family, who they're all without their powers, obviously, because they get it from Shazam. They actually go to they get together, and they have to figure out a way at the encouragement of Solomon to try to help Billy. And of course, we're going to find out how that happens next issue. But I thought this worked really well. I loved Queen Bee. Well, she is Queen Bee can't get out of her own way. She's so. It's almost as if Queen Bee is looking more for somebody, a relationship, than she is. I'm not sure what's more important to her, finding somebody that she can sleep with, or to actually rule the moon, so to speak. But I thought this had humor, fun, and this was really definitely all ages. There was adult humor here. There was also humor for all ages. This really crossed the gambit here. So I thought this was really well done. And definitely, it's in the running for pick of the week, along with Blue Beetle so far with me, and I'm still deciding. So, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I mean, this the whole Shazam series from Mark Waid's been very lighthearted, but I normally don't have many criticisms of Mark Waid books, but I talked about this last time, and how it seems like we're sort of moving on from some of the other ideas that were introduced, early on in the book. But I say that, and, we're only 4 issues in, and I know I have to give it time, so I don't want to fall into that trap. I gave you a bad time about not giving Teen Titans, enough time to really develop. But a lot of the other things aren't even necessarily being mentioned. So yeah, I'm like, we know that something's going on with Billy in terms of, it started off whenever he turned into Shazam, he was like, smarting off and being kind of a jerk, and there's hints that it's the gods that are exerting more control over him, and that's been hinted at, but we haven't been given a reason why they've decided to do that, other than maybe just because they're dicks and they're gods. So there's that whole aspect.
That's usually what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
In Wonder
I don't
Woman,
know. Maybe,
anyway.
yeah, maybe I'm just I'm looking for something a little more overt of why they're doing it. So I don't know. And then
Yeah.
there's hints here in this one as well, like when everybody is informed by Freddy that the gods are messing with Billy. They're like, okay, we have to help him. Well, how are we going to do that without powers, right? Like, I don't know the reasoning behind removing the powers from all of the other Shazam family members and then only giving it back to Mary Marvel and not the others. I mean, I remember thinking when Jeff Johns first came up with this idea of the Shazam family, being like, I mean, there's always a part of me that when you start dividing up the power of a hero and giving him other people that have the same kind of powers, it sort of diminishes the uniqueness of that hero and diminishes him a little bit in my mind. Like if you have two people running around as Batman, it makes the one Batman less special. If you have two Spider-Mans, it makes the one Spider-Man less special. So there was a little part of me that was kind of disappointed when Jeff Johns did that. But then the story he told and the way that they were all, adopted kids in the same family and kind of the closeness, and he really put the family in Shazam family, and I just got used to it. And then even the most recent series, I know it was plagued by lateness and what have you, the one that Dale Eaglesham was drawing, but it still was a lot of fun. They were traveling through different dreamlands and what have you. It was a lot of fun, and I appreciated the way that the characters all played off one another. So I miss not having the Shazam family, and I don't know if that's a Mark Waid thing. You can tell that in his mind, he's not Shazam, he's Captain Marvel, because now he's even referring to, and it's not the first time DC's referred to him as the Captain before, but never so overtly as here. And yeah, you really just wish they could just put Captain Marvel on the cover and just call him Captain Marvel, but Captain Marvel has never been less of a DC thing than it is now. A lot of people with the Captain Marvel movie and how Carol Danvers' profile has risen in the last decade, and people are going to hear Captain Marvel and that's what they're going to think of. They're going to think of the Marvel character. So I get it. But he's the first one, and there'll always be Captain Marvel in my mind. So yeah, I mean, this is a fun story. I think it works on a lot of levels, but I am ready to have it pick up the pace a little bit. But again, minor nitpick, and I don't know what else to say about the Dan Mora art. I mean, guys, quite simply one of the best comic book artists working in comics right now. He's got a clean style, and that clean style is very beneficial in telling a very clear story. But you still get plenty of emotion. You still get plenty of awesome images. You still get plenty of impactful images. His transition from panel to panel are fantastic. Like, yeah, his art is just fantastic. I can't say enough good things about it. So, all right, moving on. We have Poison Ivy number 15. This is from writer G. Willow Wilson. Art is by Marcio Takara. Colors by Arif Prianto. Letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. I'm going to go so far as to say this is my favorite issue of the Poison Ivy series so far. And it's not anything that's special, right? It's almost like a whodunit type. There's a little bit of a mystery of what's going on, and it's all about Poison Ivy. She wants to have that shack in the woods, and in order to do that, she's got to figure out why Killer Croc is sort of pushed out of the kind of sewers of Gotham City, and so she goes to investigate this building and find out what's going on, mysterious circumstances, people dying, whatever. So we get the whole background of it. We find out about the developer who created something called green steel that could heal itself, basically, but then there was a byproduct that was toxic. And he's like, yeah, everybody always thinks of themselves as a good person until, you create something and think, hey, this is going to be great. And, then there's your ambitions involved, and all of a sudden things are a little different. You see yourself a little different than you might have necessarily. So we find out about him, we find out everything that's going on, and then it's just a matter of once that's all discovered and explained, how's Poison Ivy going to escape from this like living building, basically? And then Killer Croc comes, and it's sort of a team up between the two. So this just felt like a very classic like 80s supervillain team up to me. And it felt like a very satisfying conclusion to the story. And it had hints of Poison Ivy's greater abilities with the Lamia spores and what have you, which isn't my favorite thing. There's the whole idea of Lamia spores and everything that's going on with that isn't my favorite. But it's clear that Poison Ivy's become a lot more powerful than she's been in previous years. And yeah, this was just really, at the end of the day, a fun superhero team up. And I thought the Takara art, which doesn't always, it's not always my favorite because it can tend to be a little messy, especially when we start talking about those Lamia spores and fungi and all kinds of crazy plant life or whatever. But it really worked for this, just in terms of what the green steel looked like, in terms of Croc going to help Ivy out, and Ivy herself when she's basically punching a hole in the building with her powers in order for them to escape. So yeah, this really worked on all levels for me. I was really impressed. It felt like at times this Poison Ivy title has felt like very cerebral, like an examination of Ivy and who she is and who she's trying to be, and a very kind of highbrow, intelligent book. This was kind of a step back from that and just fun. And so, yeah, I really, not that there's not value to that other stuff, but Ivy's not really a character that I really like to spend that much time thinking about, to be honest. And she's in a weird place with so many fans wanting her and Harley to be together. Obviously, she just can't be an outright villain anymore because Harley's not a villain. So it puts Ivy in this weird place. I don't think DC is not quite sure what to do with her. But yeah, for me, this is working, particularly for this issue. So I really enjoyed it. What do you think?
I wish there was a name for this villain. Is his name Green Steel? Because he mentioned Green Steel as
no. He doesn't give himself a villain name. He just has
his name's Peter.
His name. Yeah, Undine, which I also thought, yeah. So Undine, Undine, which
could be Undine.
He's sort of merged. Yeah, he's sort of merged into the green steel plant. Right. So he's undying in a way. He's immortal. So I thought Undine was, you say it fast enough.
And it's interesting that, and I agree that, well, first of all, one of the first reasons why I enjoyed this issue more is that Janet from HR is not in it. I think we can go a few issues without Janet from HR, and I'm sure Janet's going to complain to HR that she's not in this issue, but I don't care. In any event, I like I don't really understand what green steel does, but it's a metal that can heal itself. How is that related? I think that J. Willow Wilson was trying to maybe create some. Is that supposed to be the opposite of, because Poison Ivy is about controlling plants, and this new character is about controlling steel, and that steel can heal itself. I'm not really sure what the nature of his powers were, but he seemed for some reason to give himself a flowery head, even though it's green steel, and yet he gives himself a flower-looking head made of metal, I guess. So he's like the metal version of Poison Ivy, and it's weird that he's green steel, but you mentioned it, but it's blue, so it's not really green steel. It's almost like, I think it's trying to convey the fact that, why did he say it's green steel? Because is he trying to draw an analogy to plant life, how the plant can heal itself and grow even after you pick a leaf off a tree, the leaf can grow back. Just like if you damage steel, it can grow back too. So I'm curious as to what the exact nature of his powers are. So credit to J. Willow Wilson. I think this is an interesting new character. Lots of different directions that you can go with this character. What exactly does this character do? I think there's no question that this character was not killed when the building collapsed at the end of this issue. if obviously the nature of his powers is that he can literally he's a living metal that can heal itself, it's fair to say that collapsing a building on this character is not going to kill him. I thought it was well done. I like the use of Killer Croc. I like the relationship between Killer Croc that J. Willow Wilson and J. Willow Wilson is crafting here. Killer Croc and Poison Ivy have a healthy respect for each other. At first, I was a little bit taken aback at the end of this. After all that, this Green Steel character, for lack of a better way of calling him, this Green Steel character was essentially almost trapped in the building and was prepared to let Ivy be trapped there along with Killer Croc. When she finally escaped, Poison Ivy wanted this person, Green Steel, to come out with her. Like she didn't desire to kill him, which was really odd because she certainly has had a propensity for killing various people throughout this series. But this was the first character where she, other than Harley and Killer Croc maybe, and Janet from HR, that she didn't feel a compulsion to necessarily kill.
Well, I think she saw so much of herself in him.
Yeah, I think that's. I will say this, and it's a minor criticism. We were told that in the narrative. We were told that in the exposition, and I could see that clearly. I think we can the conflict, the conflicted feelings that this new character had in dealing with his powers and feeling guilty. There's clearly some. It harkens back to some of the early issues and the thoughts of Ivy in the earlier issues. So I understand why that was done. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. And this is maybe this is an overhanded compliment or an underhanded criticism of J. Willow Wilson. I want to see more of this Green Steel character because I'm interested. I'm intrigued. And how is he different? And is he even a potential? Is he the Catwoman to her Batman? You know what I mean? Is there? I know I think Ivy is probably fully gay, so that's not in the cards. But I think it would be interesting to see if do they have more in common, and is this a potential wrinkle in the triangle? Can we have a triangle between Harley, Poison Ivy, and Green Steel? Maybe not, but it would be maybe Ivy needs. She's got all that plant and all that craziness with Harley. Maybe she needs a little bit of steel in her life. But anyways, I digress. Planting seeds in J. Willow Wilson's head, but it was nice. We didn't get female orgies this issue. We didn't get more sex. And can you believe I'm relieved we're not getting sex in a comic book? Like what's happening to me? But
yeah, I mean, it is interesting because I thought that as well. Like, could this guy be a good sort of foil to Poison Ivy? Because we're told that they have so much in common, but at the same time. Ivy also says that they don't, right? Because so this guy is saying that he did this terrible thing. He dumped all this toxic waste, and Mother Nature itself. He's saying nature, the force that is nature itself, infected him with the Green Steel. Yeah, it does look like the flower's made out of metal, what have you. So, and he tells Ivy, I'm now fighting on the side of nature. So I'm your ally, what have you. So there is a part of Ivy that looks at him and goes, yes, I sympathize with this guy. He's been transformed sort of against his will into whatever. But she also says, we're not the same, right? She tells him, she goes, we're not the same. I don't believe that he's a champion for, nature. And because at the end of the day, this guy was a developer that was, putting up concrete and steel. You could make the argument, but he's not anymore. Now he is more of a force for nature itself to fight against development, what have you. So there's definitely more to be explored. And I do agree with you. I don't know why you would think that if you collapse the building that's made out of green steel on top of the guy that's infected with green steel, why that would be the end of him. I would just assume he lives, but I don't blame them for not, going in there and trying to dig through it. So I guess we'll have to see if we've seen the last of Undyne or not. We'll see. All right. Up next, we have Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing, written by Matthew Rosenberg. Carmine Dijon Domenico is the artist. Romulo Fajardo Jr. on colors. Tom Napolitano on letters. More of the same. More of confusing. Hard to tell which Joker's which. But I will say we finally get some clues about what's possibly going on at the end when who I assume to be or who we assume to have been the real Joker, confronts one of his henchmen, and he's like, I can't believe you're working for that other Joker. Um, how could you have done that to me? I can't believe you would have, betrayed me like that. You've always been one of my most loyal henchmen. And this guy's like, well, yeah. And, there was this other guy that was working for the Joker. Let me see if I can find his name. John Kaiser. Um, and it's Mr. Waffles that Joker's talking to. And he's like, I know you. He's like, yeah, Mr. Waffles. We work together. He's like, yeah, now you work for him. You work for that fake Joker. Used to be so loyal. And it come to find out, this Mr. Waffles is saying to the one that has been purported to be the real Joker all along, to us, he's saying, you're John Kaiser. You had this accident and these delusions, and you believe yourself to be the Joker. So that's kind of the first hint that we have that one of these Jokers is a former Joker henchman named John Kaiser. The other one is the actual Joker. I will say this, in the case of John Kaiser, whatever delusion that he has must be pretty strong, because he certainly is, the behavior of these two, definitely despicable and awful. And they're both capable of, I'm capable of believing either one of them is the Joker and either one of them is John Kaiser. And the other thing that it goes back to is what I say all the time. You don't need any special powers to be the Joker, which is why the Joker shouldn't even be a thing, right? Like Batman, if Batman were real and the Joker were real, Batman would beat him up in like 30 seconds. And if Superman were real, it would take half a second. Why the Joker, I think, is such a terrible character. The stuff he gets away with, just, it doesn't make any sense. Like he would be captured and thrown in prison. You lock him up, you throw away the key. So this hasn't been the best narrative. It's been confusing. It's been back and forth. I'd be lying if I said I didn't really understand, what's been going on at various times. It's been hard to follow. And, part of that might be just my natural inclination to dislike the Joker for various reasons, some of which I just mentioned. But more than anything, I just don't know. I just don't understand what the point of the story was. Or has been. As I talked about it before, about as much as I dislike the Joker, the way you can make the Joker work for me is if somebody can come along and give me a good, solid, in continuity explanation for 3 Jokers, what Jeff Johns did, which is one of my biggest disappointments in comics in the last decade, and what Matthew Rosenberg is doing here. At least Rosenberg's giving us more of an explanation than Jeff Johns ever did. But if somebody could come along and make 3 Jokers make sense, make the Joker make sense to me as a character, he could go from being one of my least liked characters. The potential is there for him to be one of my favorite characters. That's not going to happen in this series with what we've been told, because if it turns out that, the second Joker is just a former Joker henchman named John Kaiser, who somehow is able to get people to follow him and do all kinds of crazy Joker things just because he had a quote unquote accident, and now he's got some Joker paint on and he's got 2 different colored eyes just like Joker. So that means anybody could be the Joker, basically, right? It goes back to what I was just saying when I was talking about the Shazam family, about making it less special, because you have more of them. And if that's the case, it took us 12 issues. We're only on issue 11 here. Obviously, there's 1 issue to go. But it's going to take 12 issues just to find out that, it was this former henchman who has delusions that he's the Joker. What was the point? What's the point of this? It's just been kind of chaos. The art's been chaotic by Dijon Domenico. I talked about his art style being really kind of messy. It works for the Flash more than any other thing I've ever seen him draw, because Flash is so kinetic and you're capturing movement and what have you. But here it just made a confusing story even more confusing because the art was a little bit all over the place. So I'm just not a fan. Like, I've been hot and cold on this series. At various times it's worked more for me than others. And don't get me wrong, I did like that reveal. Oh, okay, John Kaiser, former henchman or whatever. At least we're getting answers. Like, that was at least a little satisfying. But then when I thought about it later, I'm like, okay, so I'm satisfied that I got an answer, but in terms of what the answer is, it doesn't really land. It doesn't really make sense. So I don't know. Am I missing something, Rocky? Did this work for you?
I don't think so. I agree with you. my impression, and I might be wrong, straight up, because I don't always figure this shit out. You know that. But my impression is that this John Kaiser was a character that the Joker, the real Joker, forgot that at some time in the past he actually wanted to create another version of himself, because that was sort of implied in the comic book in the backup last issue. So I thought that the Joker genuinely, because remember the real Joker was reading the comic book last issue and he realized, oh my God, of course, I created him. And so, all right, so maybe sometime in the past, this real Joker created this version of himself, which I think is kind of, it reminds me a little bit, it's sort of like, well, just like how Batman created the Batman of Zardasky, or Batman created Failsafe, you know, like maybe the Joker created another version of himself, but for real, in his own crazy psychotic way.
Yeah, maybe he wanted to go on vacation and needed a Joker. Yeah,
exactly.
Who knows?
But like you said, tying into your comments about the three Jokers, that is such a dumb, crazy thing to do that, the Joker would create two other versions of himself, or three or something. Yeah, you can see the Joker being that crazy and getting away with it. And especially when it's this effective, it's funny how it would be unfair, of course, for me to play script doctor, but I'm going to do it anyway. I almost would have preferred that we'd known from the beginning the truth, because I'd be really curious to know from the beginning who was the fake Joker, and watch the fake Joker successfully fool people into thinking he is the Joker, and watching how he manages to do that. That would have been kind of cool, as opposed to what we've gotten, and that is 11 issues of constant distractions with superfluous characters, from Manhunter to Red Hood to Ravager in this issue. Why? And want some glorified chase. There was one issue that I really liked. I thought it was sort of had a Fast X kind of feel to it. But beyond that, this feels like it's dragged on. And I never ever felt truly that I knew who the real Joker was, to the point that I wasn't curious to know who the real one was. I just wanted this to end, and I just want the series to end. I no longer think this will read well as a trade, because I don't think it's going to be a satisfying payoff, because I don't think it's a satisfying enough a payoff. We shouldn't have waited to issue 10 to find out what was going on. The backups did this series no favors whatsoever. And I just think, even reading as a trade, how are you going to fit those backups into a trade, since they kind of play a role in the background of some of the main story? Anyways, this was a miss for me, and I really don't care how it ends. To be honest with you, I've stopped buying the physical copies now for, I think, at issue 3 or 4, because it's clear to me that this has not been satisfying enough for me as a read. To it's a little bit too confusing for me, and I'm not enjoying the journey. But we're almost done. But actually, does this end at issue 12, or is this is an ongoing series, isn't it?
I think it ends at 12.
Does?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Wow.
I will say this also. I do feel like, again, the art hasn't done the story any favors, and maybe with a different artist, with a more simplified style, because I felt at different times very confused by this story.
Yeah.
And then you add in art that at times is just very, very messy.
Yeah. I agree.
Then it only adds to the, like the story feels complicated and messy. Now I have messy art too. Like if I'd had clean art, it may have contributed to me kind of just feeling like the story was a little more put together, instead of feeling like it was just kind of all over the place. Like, hey, let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. So I guess, again, and maybe that's on me. I know art's a very personal choice, but this is one where the art just really didn't do it any favors. But yeah, issue 12 is the last issue solicited, and in terms of backups, this was actually my favorite in terms of the backups of all the ones that we had so far. Mm-hmm. So that's because there was no backup. Yeah. The backup, don't get me wrong, I love Francesco Francavilla, but those backups have been, a real chore to read. So,
yeah.
All right. Up next, we have Fire and Ice. Welcome to Smallville Part 2. Joanne Starr on script, Natasha Bustos on art, Tamara Bonvillain on colors, Ariana Mera on letters. This is a funny title. It's not kind of maybe as laugh out loud funny as like Justice League International or what have you. Although, I know that Joanne is very much inspired by that. So it's a little bit of a fish out of water story with Fire and Ice being in Smallville and Ice trying to sort of accept that she's there and trying to make the most of it. And after spending some time with one of the locals that she met last issue and going to read to kids at the hospital, she starts thinking that maybe she wants to settle down and maybe stay there. Just kind of thinking about what the future holds for her, whereas Fire's exactly the other way, which it does sort of lean into the idea that they are interesting as best friends. One is Fire, one is Ice. Those are kind of opposite things, and they really do have opposite personalities. Although in recent years, Ice has been written a little less introverted, and obviously Fire has always been very, very much an extrovert. But there is humor here. It's pretty funny. I love when B she has this, these various ideas, and they all kind of go sideways, and it's all in terms of her trying to become more famous and get more notoriety, and in her mind that equals respect, views and clicks and social media attention and all that. So she hires Ambush Bug. We saw that hinted at the end of last issue. She hires Ambush Bug to fight and put it up online. It doesn't do what she thinks it will do, and has a bit of an argument with the people at the salon. And she's like, I need a drink, even though it's kind of early in the morning. And she goes walking across the street, and the name of the bar is Poor Decisions, like poor spelled like P-O-U-R, like he pours something. And she's like, God, this whole town is full of dad jokes. No wonder Tora loves it, Tora being Ice, And then she walks in and she goes, why is the bar so low? And the bartender replies, well, if you don't expect much, you can't be disappointed, right? Like that whole idea of, don't have a high bar. But the reason she's saying why is the bar so low, because the physical bar in this bar, in this tavern, is low. It's much lower than a regular bar, because the bartender, who happens to be the guy that owns the bar and lives in a little apartment in the back, he's in a wheelchair. And so that's why the bar is so low. But, he didn't take it like that. Obviously, the guy's got a great sense of humor. He named his bar, Poor Decisions. So, yeah, it's, again, there's plenty of jokes like that. It's really funny, and I really appreciate it. But the other part of it is the relationship, right? So Rocky Rhodes is the waitress that Ice met last issue, and she went to the hospital, children's hospital, read books this issue, what have you. This guy is, I can't remember what his I don't know if they say what his first name is, but he says, he's on FabGab, which is basically Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, as Open Roads. But I don't know if it ever says what his
the bartender's name.
Yeah, the bartender's name.
Does Charlie. Say what Charlie.
Charlie. That's right, yeah. Charlie. Yeah, Charlie Rhodes. So Charlie Rhodes, brother of Rocky Rhodes, so now you have not only the friction that's going on between Fire and Ice, longtime friendship is being put under stress based on the fact that they're in Smallville per Superman's request. Fire's not happy about it. Ice is trying to make the best of it, even to the point she's thinking about, hey, maybe it's time for me to settle down. She doesn't necessarily say, I need to settle down in Smallville, but she's thinking maybe it's time for me to settle down. Fire's the other way. I need to get out of here. I need, to be famous, and I need to be, a hero, and people need to know me, what have you. So they have that strain on their relationship right now. And Fire did not appear to be very warm when she met Rocky Rhodes. So, but she does seem to be pretty into Charlie Rhodes, Rocky's brother. So you've got the dynamic between Fire and Ice, which is not going well. Then you're going to have the dynamic between Fire and Charlie Rhodes. Then you're going to have the dynamic between between Fire and Rocky Rhodes. And then you're probably going to have a dynamic between, there's already a dynamic between Ice and Rocky, because they seem to be getting along very well. But then what's Ice's reaction going to be if Fire starts getting involved with this guy at this bar? Because I can see Ice going, you shouldn't be, and Fire's going to take this as being, judged and what have you. But Ice is going to go, what are you doing? Getting involved with this small town guy. You don't want to stay here in Smallville. You're just going to, hurt him. He's already had a, rough go. He's in a wheelchair, blah, 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 and all that kind of thing. So there's going to be another dynamic between Ice and Charlie. So at the end of the day, this series is really all about relationships and humor and kind of over the top moments here when eventually at the end, in order to try to get that notoriety that I mentioned that Fire's looking for, she reaches out to all the XYZ list villains that they had pinned up on the wall of the salon. Um, and she invites them to come and work in the salon. And then she's basically creating like a reality show that she's like live streaming on the internet, kind of like a Big Brother type thing. And she's calling it like this rehab, you know, like whatever you hear, celebrity rehab and what have you. But this is for supervillains, even to the point where they're doing confessionals in the bathroom. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's these characters are just over the top dumb, and I love. I mean, these are dumb characters, like Gorilla Grodd's sister here, and it's like, wait, what? Gorilla Grodd has a sister? Yeah, and she's just as smart as any of them, but because she's a female, she gets the short end of the stick. And then Maxie Zeus, who I completely agree. And there are bios that are written here, like some text bios. And I love Maxie Zeus. It's like his abilities. He's a white man who thinks he's a god. Standard fare, right? Because I always thought that about Maxie. Maxie Zeus. He's kind of like the Joker in that, like, why do people like? He's not even muscular. Like, he has no power. Like, why are people following him? So yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Now I will say, Gentleman Ghost is the one that feels a little out of place here because I think he does have actual powers and I think he can be a threat. But you know, clearly these characters are here to be played for humor. Smarty Pants is another one. He has 2 extra brains, and one brain is each butt cheek. And he's like, "Where else would I put him? Where else do I have room in my body for extra brains?" And his name is Smarty Pants because you know his brains are in his butt. Like it's just maybe it's like to Fire's point, maybe it's dad jokes, but you know what? I find it amusing. I find it funny. I'm a dad. I like dad jokes, actually. I heard a great one the other day. And I'll tell my dad joke and then I'll let Rocky talk about this book. But what do you call a really overweight psychic?
What? I don't know.
A 4-chin teller.
Oh my God.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Fire and Ice? Like, welcome to Smallville, too.
Well, this comic's not for me, but it is funny. There was laugh out loud moments. I laughed out loud. I was going to mention Smarty Pants. You beat me to it with the brain and the butt cheeks. It was funny. Charlie's my favorite character. Remember last issue I bitched that there was no men. Thank God suddenly men showed up in this issue because there was a dire lack of testosterone in the opening issue.
Smarts off. I didn't mention it either, but he smarts off to her. He doesn't.
He does.
Like, yeah.
He holds his own and he flirts with her and he's attracted to her and he's making no bones about it. And he holds his own pretty damn good against her, against Fire. And I think it's really good. The dialogue here was excellent. This really should have more elements that were in this issue ought to have been in the first. I really think it would have because that first issue was like substantially better than the first issue to me. Substantially better. Now it's still, you know, again, I'm going to be positive here because it, you know, I would have preferred a slightly more serious take on these characters. It does not feel like Justice League International to me because of the art. The art takes me out. I got to be honest. But the art was, I guess it's fine for what it is. This is a perfect young adult line. This would, you know, I think this would probably sell better if they were to take 96 pages of story and make a graphic novel out of it. I mean, I understand the young adult line for DC sells better than the comic books anyway. They should probably just go with that because this is right up. This would be right up the alley. But no, kudos. Hey, man, hey, I gotta. This entertained me, and I was pretty hard on the first issue, and I just scoffed at it. But this one, it kept me engaged. I started off not wanting to read it. I started to read it, and then next thing you know, I'm reading the whole thing, and I'm laughing out loud, and it puts a smile on my face at the end of it. So, you know, full compliments to the writer here because, you know, entertain me, and that's what happened. And who knows, I might end up really liking this series by the end of it, which would be, I'll happily put my foot in my mouth if it continues on this level of entertainment, because this was laugh out loud funny at parts. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on the YA. I probably maybe it might have to be like 15, 13 plus, because obviously there's some sexual tension and what have you, and that might be worse. And selfishly,
Fair enough. Yeah.
selfishly, it's like I want some more of the potty humor, and I want Charlie to be able to make crude jokes and what have you. And if I don't know, DC just might get in some trouble if they were to market this to like 10,
Yeah.
11, 12 year olds. So yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. But all right, on to the last book. I'm just going to go over it real quick because I didn't really find anything that really stood out for me. It's their Halloween special. It's called DC Ghouls. Just want to have fun. There's a question story, A Look to Die For, written by Ellen Tremiddy. I'm not familiar with her work. Art, colors, and letters by Tyler Crook. There's a Green Lantern story by Kenny Porter, written by Riley Rosmo, with art by Riley Rosmo, colors by Evan Placencia. Tom Napolitano handles the letters. That's a team up between Hal Jordan and the Demon. Probably one of the better stories in the book. There's an Animal Man story written by Michael W. Conrad, art by Christopher Mitten, colors by Yvonne Placencia, letters by Becca Carey. There's a Nightwing story written by Christopher Sabella and Linnea, art by Dexter Soy, colors by Veronica Gandini, letters by Wes Abbott. Superman story by Gregory Burnham, art and colors by Javier Rodriguez, letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. A Robot Man story written by Alex Galler, art by Fabio Veras, colors by John, letters by Farron Delgado. Crush and Lobo story written by Adam F. Goldberg and Hans Rodenoff, art by Danny Earls, colors by Patricio Del Pesce, and letters by Dave Sharp. And then finally, a Man-Bat story written by John Arcudi, art by Sean McManus, colors by Dave Stewart, letters by Carlos M. Mangual. I really enjoyed the art in the first story, the question story, but it felt oddly paced. The final fight and the end of the story are literally on the same page. Like the final battle question. Speaking of Gentleman Ghost, he's the villain here, or one of the villains. Professor Pig, the other. Literally 3 panels from the end of the story, the question takes out Gentleman Ghost. Like it's a very abrupt ending, and maybe it's just the challenge of fitting this into 8 pages. This writer Ellen Termiti, whose work I'm not familiar with, maybe she just wasn't used to working in that truncated time period. So the art's really fantastic. It was great to see Renee Montoya as the question. Great to see Gentleman Ghost. I'm always a fan of him. I think has just such a striking visual. So that one was okay. The second one, the Green Lantern Demon team up, I sort of felt like what was the point of it, to some extent. But it is paced well, and it's technically a well put together comic. But I don't know, it just felt strange. Like I guess it has a spooky Halloween feel. And if you're a fan of Riley Rosmo's art, he's very Riley Rosmo in this story, so you'd probably like it. But for me, it was just kind of, it's so weird because I thought the writing by Kenny Porter in terms of the dialogue and scripting for Hal was really good. For the Demon, not so good, but maybe it's because he chose to do the rhyming Demon, which, limits your dialogue. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. And the play between the two was just kind of off in my mind. The Animal Man story was another one that kind of felt like, what's the point? Sort of hints at the trauma that Maxine and really the whole Baker family are dealing with after the loss of her brother. But it didn't really feel like it had much of a point. Like basically Maxine is speaking to her therapist in one scene, and we're basically told that she still, is being affected by the loss of her brother. And then they let her parents let her go trick-or-treating by herself, but Animal Man actually secretly follows her to make sure she's okay. And she protects another boy who's being bullied. And that was it. That's the whole story. I was left thinking, like, why is this a story? Why is it? What's this doing in here? I didn't make any sense. The Nightwing Red Hood story, the Nightwing story is a team up between him and Red Hood, which hints at so much more to come. It talks about other goings on in Bloodhaven of people being turned into monsters. So it felt very incomplete. It felt like the first half of a chapter of a bigger story. So who knows if we'll get more of that. Um, the Superman story, I did really enjoy the Superman story in terms of the Javier Rodriguez art. We recently had a Javier Rodriguez do a story with Christopher Cantwell, a Superman story, and he just has this really classic feel in his Superman art. And so this one, he goes and investigates this haunted castle that was used as a prison at some point, and he solves a mystery that's many years old and has to do with ghosts and somebody that was torturing somebody and what have you. So it makes sense. It works as a story, especially in terms of the interaction between Lois and Clark and their investigative reporter roles and what have you. So, but this one also felt like something that could be expanded into something more. The Robot Man, I flat out didn't get. It's Robot Man just being haunted by a bunch of dead members of the Doom Patrol. So, Rocky and I have talked about this before when we've reviewed Doom Patrol, maybe because I don't have a good enough history with Doom Patrol. I don't know who a lot of these people are. I don't know how they died. And so I don't know why I'm supposed to care, sort of. It doesn't land the emotional impact it's supposed to because I don't know these characters. Now, the Crush and Lobo Happy Halloween one is actually pretty funny. So Lobo shows up at Crush's apartment. She doesn't want to answer the door, so he just blows a hole in the wall, comes in and says, I'm going to a Halloween party. I don't know anything about fashion. I need your help with a costume. And so he gives some ideas, but he's like, you can't, I won't wear a hat and you can't touch my hair. And he's like, well, you want a great costume? A lot of people say you remind them of a certain badass played by Hugh Jackman in the movies. Clearly she's referencing Wolverine, but you can't say Wolverine, right? Because it's a Marvel comic or a DC comic, not a Marvel comic. And that's kind of the point. He goes, oh, that's a great idea. And he comes back dressed as John Valjean, right? From Les Mis. And he's like, no, that's not it. Not Les Mis. And she's like, besides, to do that right, you'd have to wear a fake beard and shave your head. He's like, I shave my head. I wouldn't wear a hat. I love my hair. I'm not shaving my head. Like, no, not that. Then not that character. And he's like, oh, I get it now. And he comes back as the Greatest Showman. She's like, no, not the Greatest Showman. You're a terrible singer. It's the one named after an animal. So then he shows up as Eddie the Eagle, which I've never seen that movie. But I knew that Hugh Jackman didn't play Eddie the Eagle. Apparently he plays Eddie the Eagle's coach.
Yeah.
And she's like, what are you talking about? And so he ends up showing up as Aquaman, which again, it's not who that really we're referring to. They clearly were talking about Wolverine. But there's all these rumors that the guy who plays Aquaman, Jason Momoa, may actually end up playing Lobo at some point. Because he does, I mean, in fairness, if you look at classic Aquaman and you look at Lobo and say, okay, which one does Jason Momoa look more like? He definitely looks more like Lobo. Aquaman has always had blonde hair. And he's always looked very Caucasian as opposed to Lobo. Well, I guess Lobo looks very Caucasian too. He's like literally has white skin. But anyway, he goes to the costume as Aquaman, thinking that he doesn't look anything like Aquaman, and then there's other people that show up that mistake him for Aquaman and fight him because he looks like Aquaman. So yeah, it's that one was really funny. I'm typically not that big of a fan of Lobo, but that one was hilarious. And the last story, Man Bat story, sort of heartfelt. This woman that's lived in Gotham all her life, and has always wanted to meet Batman, actually meets Man Bat instead, and ends up helping Man Bat when he gets himself in trouble. And it's kind of heartfelt. She has all these clippings pinned up on the wall of her house, newspaper clippings, stories of Batman. And then at the end, she takes them all down and pins up just one story, and it's the story of her. She's a retired school nurse and she saves Man Bat's life. So pretty heartwarming story there. So with that one was probably the least Halloween-ish story just because I had Man Bat. It was Halloween-ish. Maybe that's why I liked it. I'm just not a big Halloween guy. I'm just not. So maybe some of these stories would be better appreciated by somebody who's a big Halloween person. But yeah, I just took them at face value and it was only So anything to add, Rocky? I don't know if you got a chance to read any of them.
No, I appreciated your review of the final story with Aquaman and Lobo there. I'm sure I would have enjoyed that the most. But no, I never had a chance to read all the stories to be able to comment much for it. So, but if you're into anthologies and you're not into DC and you want to just check out some characters, it's probably worth checking out. So who knows?
Yeah, and like I said, it is a chance for some creators who might not normally have a chance to work on DC books to get a chance, to make some connections, meet editors, work with an artist, show they can meet a deadline, that sort of thing. So there's value, but yeah, you can't go into it thinking it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, because a lot of the anthologies, even when they tie them into the events, they've really just not been that exciting. I mean, when they first started doing them, I felt like they were a little more exciting, but God, you just go to the well so many times. It's the same thing with like constantly rebooting and starting with a new number one issue, right? Like it loses its cachet after a while. Same thing with the limited color palette anthologies that Rocky and I are both kind of tired of at this point. Like you
Yeah.
do it the first few times and it's kind of neat and fun, but then when everybody has one, when Deadpool has one, Deadpool, Moon Knight, Wolverine, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, it's like, oh my God, enough already. So anyway, collected editions this week: Batman Volume 4, The Cowardly Lot. This is collecting more of the James Tynion run. Batman issues 106 through 111 and Infinite Frontier 0. We've also got Batman Wayne Family Adventures Volume 2. This is collecting the Webtoon series, which was Eisner nominated. This collects the digital episodes of 26 through 51, if you're so inclined to check that out. Batgirls Volume 3 collects the end of the series, Batgirls 13 through 19, and the 2022 annual, which that 2022 annual was probably our favorite issue of the whole entire run. And even at that, I still wouldn't recommend reading that, but up to you if you want to check it out. Zatanna and the Ripper Volume 1 collects the first 11 episodes of the Zatanna webtoon series, which has been a big hit. Been doing gangbuster numbers. I haven't read it, but I've been hearing a lot of good things. Also, Superman, The Harvest of Youth is finally out. This is the graphic novel that Cena Grace has been working on for a long, long time. I've gotten a chance to read the first half of it. It's absolutely fantastic. He wrote it, he drew it. It's a very sort of heartfelt look at Clark and Smallville and him growing up and discovering he has powers, and maybe a little more of a realistic type story than you might expect from a Superman story. We've also got Deceased, the deluxe edition hardcover, which collects Deceased and Deceased 1 through 6 and Deceased: A Good Day to Die #1. Tom Taylor written, Trevor Hairsine art, absolutely fantastic. The Sergeant Rock versus the Army of the Dead hardcover, which Rocky and I reviewed all the issues earlier this year, written by Bruce Campbell. Yes, that Bruce Campbell, Boomstick Ash from Evil Dead. Art by Eduardo Riso, who most people will know from 100 Bullets. That was a lot of fun. That's very much a popcorn comic. You don't need to know anything about Sergeant Rock. It's just Sergeant Rock taking out Nazis and zombies and Nazi zombies, and great art, really fun. We've got Ghostmaker Clown Hunter by James Tynion. This basically follows on the heels of the other collection I just mentioned. So this collects Batman 107 through 111, Batman Secret Files Clown Hunter 1, Batman Joker Warzone #1, and Batman Annual 2022, and Batman Annual 5. Vixen NYC Volume 2, again, collecting Webtoon content. This collects episodes 10 through 18 of the Vixen DC Webtoon comic. And then finally, DC Horror Presents Soul Plumber, which was a series that came out last year, ended around Halloween. I think I read the first issue, was like, this is not for me, but it's written by Marcus Parks, and the art is by PJ Holden. And this hardcover, or trade paperback rather, collects all 6 issues of Soul Plumber. So if you're so inclined, want to check it out, it's literally about this group called Soul Plumbers and how their fight against Satan. Like I said, wasn't really for me. So yeah, I mean, Soul Plumbers, really? I mean, they look like plumbers, like ass cracks are showing and all that. So
Yeah.
okay, you've
There's
had time to
actually
think.
there is
Oh
the
yeah,
new Golden Age special
yeah,
edition that reprinting the first 3 issues of Justice Society of America Gold Edition. That's on the stands this week too. So
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. So there's a couple things, right? So there's the JSA Gold Edition #1, which basically collects the first 3 issues of the JSA run that had a number of artists, right? Like we had Mikel Yanine and Jerry Ordway, and I'm trying to remember who was the third artist on that. Is it listed there? I guess it's not. I'll look that up real fast. So yeah, so if you haven't read any of the JSA, we do recommend it. It's been a lot of fun. So that, and you can get all three of the first three issues all in one volume, and it's cheaper, right? So 72 pages, so three comics, and it's $4.99. So you're basically getting a 3-for-1. Scott Collins was the other artist. So we have Mikel Yanine, Scott Collins, Jerry Ordway, and yeah, it's Huntress coming back in time and Per Degaton showing up and all that kind of stuff, and it's absolutely fantastic. The other thing is the book that came out that sort of bridged the gap between Stargirl and the Lost Children and the Justice Society run was the one shot of the new Golden Age, which also written by Jeff Johns. Now, the cool thing about this new Golden Age special edition that's written by Jeff Johns, same artist, Scott Collins, Jerry Ordway, and we also have some Gary Frank, Todd Knock, Brandon Peterson art in that one. The cool thing about that one is it also has some sneak peeks for some of the other stories that are coming out in this corner of the DCU. So we get the first few pages of Robert Venditti's Sandman. We get the first few pages of Tim Sheridan's Alan Scott Green Lantern, and we get the first few pages of Jeremy Adams on Jay Garrick Flash. So I read those previews. They were absolutely fantastic. That's a great story. The only thing I will say is, in the interest of full disclosure, the JSA title doesn't seem to come out on a regular basis. Yeah. So you might binge all this stuff, and you may have to wait a little while before you get another satisfying chunk of story. But yeah, I would have forgotten to mention those. I'm glad you.
Well, it's funny. There's been so much delay with Justice Society. It's been, I don't know. I feel like it's been over a year for them to put out 6 issues. They almost have to republish it to remind readers that, oh, by the way, that there is a Justice Society comic book out there. So it's good.
Yeah, like I knew these were reprints, but when I was flipping through the new Golden Age to get to the previews, like I was like, oh, I almost don't remember this. It's been so long since I read it. So yeah, good point. All right, moment of truth. What is your book of the week?
All right, my book of the week. I am going to have to go with. I'm going to go with Shazam. I'm going with Shazam. I thought it was the most. I thought I had a lot of fun. I like what Mark Waid's doing with the gods, and I just trying to get my book of the week here, and I enjoyed it. I enjoy what Mark Waid's doing with the gods. It was a fun issue. I love Shazam with Zeus trying to pick up a queen bee, get lucky. I mean, for a guy who's supposed to be dead, Zeus is, he's always ready for some action. And I'm not talking about fisticuffs. So, unfortunately, he's got very bad taste, poor taste, doing it through the eyes of through the mind of a whatever 14-year-old, however old Billy Batson is. But the guy doesn't have a very, very particularly a strong moral compass by any stretch. But it makes for entertaining reading, though. So, what'd you pick?
Yeah, so if you would have asked me before we recorded, or before I read them, actually, I probably would have said, just looking at the titles and based on previous issues, I'm probably going to pick Birds of Prey. And then after I read Poison Ivy, I was like, oh, this is going to be my book of the week. It's so good. But then I read Smallville, right? Fire and Ice, going to Smallville, and much like yourself, I was so entertained and I was laughing out loud. I really enjoyed the character of Charlie. These Z-list villains that were just so incompetent and so hilarious. The only way it could have been a little better is maybe a little more ambush bug, because we all know that in the hands of a great writer, he can be hilarious. He was most recently in the issues of Suicide Squad. I would never have guessed that this would have been my pick of the week, but yeah, maybe it was the dad jokes. But yeah, it works. I know the art is not the most dynamic from Natasha Bustos, but it works for what it is, right? Which is kind of more of a slice of life story rather than a superhero story. And just digging it, really digging it. So that's my pick of the week.
Right on. Oh, that's good.
All right. Well, we hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave some comments below. Weigh in on Rocky and I our disagreement on Gotham War. Let us know what your thoughts are on the Gotham War, the divisive story that's going on in the Batman comics. To do that, you need to subscribe to Rocky's channel. I mean, you don't really need to subscribe, but you should. You should subscribe. Ring the notification bell. That way you know when new content comes out. Just go to YouTube, search for Comic Boom, Comic Space Boom, exclamation point, and check that box. That way you never miss an episode. Conversely, if you're checking us out on YouTube and you want to be sure to have access to all the other audio-only content that comes out on the Comic Source, been doing a lot of creator-owned and crowdfunding interviews lately. A lot of projects very worthy of your attention. So just be sure to go to wherever you get your podcast, do a search for the Comic Source, and subscribe. We're going to have the holiday season upon us before you know it. We'll have 12 Days of the Comic Source with a bunch of interviews, as we do every year with creators and what have you. So look for that as well. You want to be sure to be subscribed. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. We appreciate you joining us as always, and we will talk to you next time.
And a quick happy Thanksgiving. This coming weekend is Canadian Thanksgiving in Canada. So all the Canadian viewers, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the Thanksgiving weekend and see you next week.